Hello there, and welcome back to Little Bear Games. I'm Josh.
I'm Andy.
And today we're very excited, very hyper, bouncing off the walls, and extremely exhilarated to talk to you about some coffee morning game.
I was going to say, is that because you've had your coffee this morning?
Oh, I did. Jodie makes a lovely cup of coffee. So.
Thanks, Jodie.
So today we're going to be looking at 3 games each that we think are perfectly suited to a coffee morning. I think maybe, as per usual, we'll have some slightly different interpretations on what makes a good coffee morning game. And we're going to be doing something fairly gimmicky and exciting that we decided on about 2 minutes before pressing record, which is we're going to pair each game with a particular type of coffee as well in terms of its characteristics and I suppose whether we enjoy it and what we feel is good about it.
Yeah.
So, Andy, do you want to start us off with your coffee morning games?
I will start us off with one of my favourite games and one that we've covered recently, so I won't go into too much detail with it. It's Carcassonne. Hi, Sarah. We saw that this is your favourite game, so thank you for leaving us that comment. You know who you are, Miss Evans. So yeah, Carcassonne, as we spoke about recently, is a tile-laying game where players build a medieval landscape, place tiles and meeples to score points. And the aim is to complete cities, roads, monasteries and fields to earn points. And it's a great little game that you can play probably in about half hour, 45 minutes. And in fact, what inspired us to sort of do the coffee morning game is when you and I went away with our board gaming group a little while ago to Fishguard. Back in 2020, I think this was.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was the start of COVID. And not to go on too far of a tangent as we normally do, but I remember starting that year going, we love board games. We need to go away loads this year. It'll be great, you know. And we started it off in January, went away to Fishguard, had an amazing board game year, and then COVID hit and we couldn't go away. So it was a bit of a shame. But I remember after quite a heavy night of board gaming and drinking, you and I wake up quite early to an absolutely gorgeous scene because we were right on the coast.
Yeah.
And we sat there with a cup of coffee and I introduced you to Carcassonne. We played Carcassonne, and you, I think, fell in love with the game to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It's certainly not your favourite tile placing game, as we've learnt. But yeah, it was a really, really fun, especially with the scenery. There was something about it, and I think sort of the idea of coffee morning gaming kind of was spawned from that moment. Correct me if you feel that's wrong, but I think you and I started talking about it and just the importance of starting the day off with a nice cup of coffee, a great board game that you can play over not a long period of time that's easy to set up. And Carcassonne, great coffee morning game.
You're absolutely right. There's something about that. I mean, we were absolutely blessed in terms of our scenery anyway, kind of looking out to the sun rising over the sea and all that sort of stuff. Very cliche. Yeah, that pairing of a kind of medium weight board game, light medium, you know, a little bit thinky, but not too dense, quite easy to set up and put away. Cup of coffee, sat there. There's just something really sort of cozy and wholesome and lovely about that.
Yeah.
That really stuck with me.
And it's also stuck with me. And to include our gimmick in this, you know, a latte will go great with a game of Carcassonne. A nice morning, hit of coffee, fresh milk, game of Carcassonne. My pairing for Carcassonne is a nice latte.
Lovely.
Perfect.
Now we can laugh at me struggling because I know so much less about coffee than you. So
well, you're normally an Americano drinker, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was from my teaching days. Just black coffee in a cup, water on it, no time for anything else. Chug it into the next lesson.
Nice, nice.
So my first game is going to be Seas of Strife.
Nice.
And that's a little 3 to 6 player trick taking game. I played it very, very recently when I was down in Devon seeing my parents. And it was lovely. We sat around with a cup of coffee and played it. It was me, Jazz, Mum and Dad played it together. And it was absolutely fantastic. It's a lovely game. It's very basic. You've got a deck of cards. The deck's made up of various card suits. You've got kind of icebergs and sunsets and krakens and whirlpools and all sorts. And the idea is it's kind of like a reverse trick-taking game. So first player plays a card. all the other players in turn have to then play a matching card of that suit. If they can't, they can play a card of a different suit. And at the end of kind of everyone laying down a card, the player with the highest number card of the most prevalent suit wins the trick.
Okay.
And I say it's a reverse trick-taking game because you don't want to win anything.
Right.
The idea is that the player who wins the least amount of tricks wins the game overall.
Is this the one that the four of us played?
Yeah, we played at mine not too long ago as well.
Okay. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and it's just a really simple, nice little game. It's got lovely artwork on it. It takes, 5-10 minutes to actually play a round of it, if that. And you can just keep going for one more turn. And we house rule it a bit because I think in the actual rule book, it's kind of like there is a point system and you're supposed to play so many rounds. And if you have the most amount of tricks, you get -1 point. And if you have the least, you get +10. And you kind of work it out over a period of rounds. But we just do, the person who has the most loses and the person who has the least wins.
Fair.
But it was great. I sat down there, and parents live in a really nice rural part of Devon. So again, nice views probably helped, and that kind of sheep bearing outside and what have you.
Yes.
And yeah, it's a nice cup of coffee. And that game in particular that we played recently was hilarious just because my mum gets super into games. Particularly when Dad's involved, she gets very competitive.
Oh, nice. Okay,
I think I might have weirdly discovered where I get that from now.
Okay. You've discovered where you get your toxicity from, is that what you're saying?
No,
just your competitiveness.
I would never go so far as calling Mum toxic.
No, neither was I. Sorry, Elaine.
But it's, don't, she'll find us.
Yeah.
She'll be coming in now.
100%.
But that competitive nature, she got really into it, was taking it ultra seriously and kind of really focusing in on stuff, and won in the end. And Mum always wins a ball game. She always beats me. And to start with, it was how did I do that kind of thing? I didn't really, but she knows. She knows what she's doing. There's no flies on my mum at all. But then Dad has never been a fan of card games. Okay. He loves board games, actual bits and pieces and figures and models and all that sort of stuff, components. Never been big on cards. And he was explaining to us when we were down there, the reason for that was, the kind of era Dad was growing up in. It used to be, I think he was saying it was like Friday nights, the family would sit around and play cards.
Okay.
And he'd just find it really boring. Right. And it just kind of instilled that in him.
Okay.
That he wasn't a big fan of cards. And I've seen that before because I tried teaching them Dominion a while back. And Mum got really into it. Dad wasn't a fan at all.
Okay.
But then he loves more tactile stuff. Like we played any dexterity games, things like that. He loves. But Dad, even he got into it. And I think in part that was due to the artwork, all the sailing boats and high seas and stuff, because he used to sail a lot, loves boats and all that. But it was hilarious because we had this trick that played out. Mum went first, and it was like, they're called doldrums, but it was the orange suit, the kind of nice peaceful sunset. Mum played first, then Jazz played, then I played a different suit because I didn't have any orange ones. Mine was a whirlpool, it's like a sort of teal colour. And then Dad said, well, what do I do if I can't play either of those? And we said, well, just play anything then. Ideally, you probably want to make it a high one because you're not going to win this trick. So get rid of something not very good from your hand. And he was like, oh, okay then, and played like the highest card in the deck, like one of these cracking cards.
Nice.
And then the next trick starts, and I think I lost that one, so I started off the next one. And I played another orange card, and then Dad just puts down an orange card. And then my mum goes, well, you should have played that. And Jazz being like kind of nice and stuff was kind of like, oh yeah, Kevin, you needed to kind of play that card in the last suit because you had it there. And Mum was getting more edgy and was kind of like, oh, well, you needed to play that. Why didn't you? Kind of thing. And Dad said, well, because I didn't want to. and then it just, and we all fell out laughing. And it just became this progressive thing of like, is Dad knowingly cheating?
Yes.
Or is he? And I think the answer towards the end of the game was yes, because it happened several more times. But it was
Kevin had a system. Well,
he definitely had a system. The reason he probably doesn't like card games is because he's been thrown out of too many casinos.
Yeah. Oh, I love the idea of that.
But yeah, it was just it's a lovely, simple game, and it's never going to be a game that, last week when we were talking about sentimental stuff, I was saying about Blood on the Clock Tower and losing yourself in it. You're never going to lose yourself in Seas of Strife.
No.
But either as a opening game for a games evening or a coffee morning game, just a light little fun game that you can talk to people about, have a bit of a laugh and be doing other things whilst you're playing. Yeah, it's fantastic. And I can't for the life of me kind of think about what coffee it would pair well with. Something short, little bit kind of spicy. I think
short and spicy. I think you want short, so you're thinking espresso.
Yeah.
And then milk's not necessarily spicy, but like a macchiato is an espresso with a little bit of milk.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So something that's got a bit of edge to it, but very short and overall quite warming.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot.
So macchiato for Seas of Strife.
Perfect. And that takes me on to my next coffee morning game, which is one I added to my collection not that long ago, but it was one that I was after for quite some time. And I remember seeing it, wanting it, and then not buying it for quite some time because either it wasn't in the shop or whatever it was. And that's Furnace. And Furnace is a engine building game where sort of 19th century industrialists sort of acquire and upgrade their factories to produce resources and maximize your profits. And you're using cards and sort of bidding mechanics to optimize your resource production to gain the most points, really. When I first thought about this game, I thought it was going to be quite a long game, but actually it's a really, really short game. I think you can play it in about a half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
That might not be true for your very first playthrough as you learn it, but once you've played it and you're used to it, I think when we played it the second or third time, it ran a lot quicker.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it because you'd wanted Furnace for ages. Yeah. And on the box and the reviews were like raving about it. And on the box, it looked very similar to like Brass.
Yes.
The Brass games, like that similar kind of, as you say, 19th century industrial revolution-y type stuff. I mean, those things happen at separate times, but you get the point. Yeah. And I was thinking, that looks weighty. That looks like something that's going to be a couple hours, very thinky. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, first time we played it was in the stables, wasn't it? In Western.
It was in the stables, yeah. Yes. That's right, I didn't own the game, but we saw it and we thought, we'll give it a try. And then as soon as we played it, I was like, I'm definitely going and buying this.
Yeah, and it only, you say you think it took us quite a lot, potentially a lot longer than half an hour. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was. I remember being like, wow, that was way quicker and easier than I thought it was going to be.
And interestingly, we're at the Stables, which is a board game cafe / pub in Weston, and I think we were actually drinking coffee this day rather than beer, which we have done in the past. So it fits quite nicely into this theme. Not quite the nice, pleasant view that we've had at Fishguard or that you've had at your parents' while playing a board game. There's a theatre opposite the stable. It's a nice theatre, but, just no ocean scene or sheep or whatever. But yeah, it was a game that I fell for, went out and purchased, and can easily pull out time and time again and explain to our board game group really, really quickly. Because that's important. You need to be able to explain a game to people that they haven't played before well, otherwise you're going to lose your audience. And I'm sure that's something we'll cover in a board game etiquette episode in the future. Yeah, sit down, morning coffee, game of Furnace. I think all our friends have enjoyed this game when we've played it. I think Jazz has enjoyed it. Jodie certainly enjoyed it. I think that's all the only people we've introduced it to so far. I don't think Smithy, Zoe, Sen, Albie have played this yet, have they?
I don't think so.
No, we'll have to get them round for a cup of coffee and a game of Furnace.
Yeah, it's a lovely game and it's very satisfying, isn't it? Like when you pull off a big turn, it really feels good.
Yes.
And the way the game works, where as long as you've trust everyone you're playing with, you can do your turns kind of simultaneously.
Yeah.
And and so that just, again, that lends into that kind of coffee morning, fairly relaxed. Like you're not waiting for people who are getting analysis paralysis or whatever. You're just kind of doing your own thing and ticking along.
That's right. Because once you've sort of bidded, so you have these numbered coins that vary in size 1 to 4, and you're placing those coins. So 1 means that you very much want that card. Like that's the highest number. Is it 1 or 4?
Minimum.
Minimum. So maybe 4 is, because 4 is the bigger token. Yeah. So you place 4 if you really, really want a card to add to your your engine, your industrial factory building. And once you place a number on there, the next person can only place a different numbered token on there.
Has to be higher, doesn't it? You always have to go higher on the bids. Yeah.
And if the second person that bids there won't win the card, but they'll win the resource that's on the card. They've got resources like oil,
coal, that sort of stuff.
Iron, that sort of stuff. Usual factory stuff, I guess. And so, yeah, once you win the card and you've done the bidding, it goes in front of you. And at that point, your factory sort of goes into working mode and you start producing. So you'll use a technology token to convert that into a resource of some kind. And that's the bit that Josh was talking about in terms of you can do that between yourselves rather than waiting for you to do it one by one. If you all trust each other, which you should do in your board gaming group, then you can just flow through that engine building process by yourself. And it speeds up the game. Really, that's the best thing about it. And you're then creating it's money. You earn money, don't you? You earn money as a result, and the person with the most money will ultimately win. And to continue with our theme of coffee games, Americano. This pairs really well with Americano. It's fuel. It's fuel for you, and it's fuel for your factory, and your engine building. It's the closest thing I could, to oil / diesel, whatever you need for your engine. So yeah, a nice cup of Americano, maybe with a splash of water if you're joshing in a hurry.
My secrets.
Yes, yes.
Perfect. So my second coffee morning game is Onitama. Now, this is one of the first board games I bought alongside Escape the Dark Castle, Jaipur, those ones I mentioned on previous podcasts. And Onitama is great. It's a 2-player, I want to call it a chess-like. It's an abstract game where you're moving pieces on a grid, and there's a couple of different win conditions. So thematically, you're 2 rival martial arts schools, and you're competing to see who has the best master / students in those schools. And there's essentially 2 ways to win the game. One is more chess, so that's called the Way of the Stone, and that is each player has 4 student pieces and 1 master piece in the middle, and the master's kind of taller and has a long beard and all that kind of stuff. And the piece is lovely. It's a pretty game, played on a nice little rollout mat. And the Way of the Stone is you capture your opponent's master.
Okay.
So very chess, like just capturing the king kind of thing. Then you've got a more backgammon kind of way of winning, or Chinese checkers way of winning, which is the Way of Water, I want to say. And that's where you get your masterpiece onto the opponent's starting master square, which are coloured in on the grid. So that's more about just moving across the board and getting them into a certain position that the other player's trying to defend. So there's 2 different ways to win the game. And the way the game works is you have 5 cards out in play at any one time. And these cards are your moves. They're how your pieces move around the board. So each player has 2, and there's 1 in the middle. So at any one point, you're choosing between these 2 cards and how your piece is going to move. And they can be really simple. You can have like the ox, where you can move forward 1 square, left 1 square, right 1 square, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or you could have something a bit more crazy, like the crane or the mantis. And that could be you jump forward 5 squares diagonally to the left. So it can really vary. And what's interesting is once you've played your card and moved your piece, and these cards are all public knowledge, you then take the one from the middle, put that in front of you, and the card you've played then goes to the middle. So you're constantly thinking about, what's my opponent got? How can their pieces move? How can my pieces move? What's in the middle? What am I going to be getting in a minute? What are they going to be getting in a minute? Okay. And also, you might be a bit hesitant if you've got a card that's quite dangerous, so you can jump across the board and be quite unpredictable. You may not want to actually play that for quite a while, because once you've played it, your opponent's then got access to it. So it gets very thinky. But it's a very simple game. It sounds complex, but it's very, very simple, very easy to teach and just pick up and play. And it takes anywhere between kind of 5 and 20 minutes to play a game.
Nice.
So it's just a lovely kind of mix in terms of sitting down, nice morning, quick game, but a bit thinky. Just something to lose yourself in during the coffee morning. I don't think you've ever played it, have you?
No. As you were talking, I was thinking, oh, this is another one of the games that you played, and actually sounds really cool, and I'd like to play. The fact that it's quite thinky probably means I'll be terrible at it and no doubt lose. It very much sounds like a game that I want to pick up and play with you, especially if it's a coffee morning game. And as just to give people a bit of background, Josh tends to come over really early in the morning and we will sit and have a coffee and play a game and then think about podcasting or whatever. So that's kind of our mini process in podcasting. So that certainly sounds like one that we need to play, even if it's not one that we talk about on the podcast that much. So what coffee would you pair this game with, Josh?
So I would go with a flat white.
Nice.
For this one. Very basic, very straightforward.
Yeah.
Very
strong coffee.
Yeah, strong.
For your thinky, because it's normally like 3 shots, right? Non-foamy milk on top. Yeah, okay, I like it. I love a flat white.
I like that I said flat white, and you had to kind of explain to me what it was.
Let's face it, you drink Americano and that's it.
I just drink coffee. I don't really mind.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anyway, what's your final coffee morning game, Andy?
My final coffee morning game is a game that we've talked about how I got into board gaming, and it was probably one of the first games that I had purchased. I'm just trying to think back now, that I purchased when I sort of got back into board gaming when we all started. It's a simple card game. My friend Pete from my last job and from this job, because we still work together. Hi, Pete. Introduced me to, and that's Exploding Kittens. It's a card game that was on Kickstarter, did extremely well on Kickstarter, has real fun artwork on the cards. And for anyone that hasn't played it, it's just a light-hearted card game where you're drawing cards and trying to sort of avoid drawing the exploding kitten card, which is a little bomb, which eliminates you from the game. However, everybody tends to have a diffuse card in your deck. So if you do draw that exploding kitten card, you can diffuse it the first time. There are other diffuses that you could pick up from the deck. And once you do diffuse it, you get to put the exploding kitten card anywhere in the deck that you like. So you could put it on the top for the next person to pick up. You could put it in the middle, bottom, random, whatever you like. And you have in your deck ways to avoid picking up the top card or shuffling that deck. Or so there's a mechanic to sort of even though you're trying to trick somebody to pick up the next card, or you might try and, how do I explain it? You might try and overthink and go, well, they might not, if they think I put it on top, they might then shuffle or move, ignore the top card, and the second person will pick it up. Or I'm making it sound more thinky than it is. But it's just a fun, light-hearted card game. The artwork is fantastic. I loved it so much I ended up picking up the NFSW version, which is the not safe for work. The artwork's just a little bit more interesting. It's not anything that you'd imagine when you hear NFSW.
It's not like Kamigami Battles.
It's not Kamigami Battles. No, nice reference. No, by no shape of the imagination. It's just funnier artwork that might not be for a younger generation, but just real fun game that I've not only played in the morning with a coffee. We take to the pub with us because it's a small box that it comes in. In fact, I ended up buying the box that when you opened it meowed. That's how much I like. I think I ended up with 3 copies of the game. But I should probably mention at this point, we have board game evenings and we like to invite new people. Shout out to Katie and Thomas, who have recently joined us in a board game evening, which is really nice. And to Lee and his kids, Lily and Thomas also. Hello, Tom. Jodie doesn't necessarily like it when I do this, but if we play a game and the kids absolutely love it, I will give them the copy. And I've given away a few copies of my game, but it's my way of saying, hey, thank you for coming over. Thank you for hanging out. I'm glad you've enjoyed this. Please have this. So I've done that with Exploding Kitten, so I don't have the 3 copies anymore. In fact, I gave that copy to a different Lily. Oh, wow, we've got so many Lilies and Thomases now. I gave that to Jodie's niece, the meowing box of Exploding Kittens. Because it's just such an easy game to play. You play it once, you know how to play it. And it's one of those that is a bit of a gateway game, I guess, to some extent. And I give away gateway games. So I've done that with Exploding Kittens, Cockroach Poker. I've done that with Skull, which is another a good game that I've ended up giving away. So yeah, I mean, I said that I said that I never really get rid of games. There are games in my collection that I'd never sell because I love them, and I would only then give away, I guess, if I could never purchase a copy of the game away. Going off tangent from it, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about. I like to give back within the board game groups that we play with.
Yeah, which is really, really nice. I mean, with Exploding Kittens, you're never going to not be able to buy that. I think that when we were at the UK Games Expo, I saw a sign for like a Netflix series or something.
Yes.
For it.
I remember seeing that now, but then I must have forgotten about it afterwards. Yeah, I was intrigued by that. They've grown like massively, haven't they? Because they've got Exploding Kittens, and then they do
Bears versus Babies.
Versus Babies.
But I don't know if that's them or not. I always get confused because there's a couple of really similar publishers who do a very similar.
Yeah, I think Bears versus Babies is them.
Yeah.
And then they've also done a few other ones that I'm not going to rattle off the top of my head in case I do get wrong. But I very much recommend Exploding Kittens. One that you can play with your kids. A fond memory that I have of playing Exploding Kittens with a coffee was in, hi again, Pete, I'm talking to you. In our last job when things were winding down because Pete had handed in his notice and I was slowly following suit and we were both leaving the business. We didn't have very much work to do and I had Exploding Kittens with us. So we would go into work and sit at our desks and play Exploding Kittens, which was kind of cool over a coffee because Pete's a coffee man. He's like you. He's an Americano. It's just dark coffee, splash of water, job done.
Nice.
Comes in with his coffee.
Man of culture.
Exactly. Yeah. However, the pairing of coffee I would give Exploding Kittens would probably be an espresso. Yeah, baby chino maybe. No, espresso. It's just a short, fun game that you can play. Quick shot of coffee. And especially if you can get to play it at work before you start your day, you can have a good day ahead of you.
Lovely. So my last coffee morning game is actually one of my favourite games, and that is Tiny Towns.
Nice.
Now, Tiny Towns is great. Its theme's lovely. It's basically about a load of little woodland Chris's who are trying to build a town out of all of the kind of rubbish and refuse thrown away by the big people, i.e. humans.
You looked at me when you said that.
It's nothing personal, I'm sorry. There's only two of us sat in this room, Andy. And I felt attacked by that. I don't really know where to go now.
No, sorry, Chief.
Giants.
Yes, giants, yeah.
That's probably worse.
Well, yeah, because I'm a dwarf. Yeah. I feel attacked once again. So I won't take it personally.
Yeah. I'm still working on getting cancelled.
You were cancelled after
after saying Age of Sigmar.
Age of Sigmar, yeah, exactly.
Damn it, Andy! I've just done it again.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
No, the Tiny Towns is a lovely game. Its theme's lovely, the artwork's lovely. Lots of just really wholesome stuff of squirrels walking around water fountains and badgers, opening up corner shops and stuff. It's really wholesome and nice. And the gameplay's excellent. It's you get a little grid kind of board, a little personal grid in front of you. And essentially what happens, you've got a selection of different coloured cubes that represent different resources. So things like wheat, brick, wood, that kind of stuff. And then each turn, one player is the master builder and they call out a resource and every other player has to take a cube of that colour and put it onto a square on their grid.
Okay.
Now, there's different cards that come out every time you play the game and you pick those at the start of the game. You essentially have different categories of buildings that need to make up your town. Mm-hmm. So you'll have cottages, which is kind of consistent throughout, little houses. But then you've also got, say, farm buildings. So within that category, depending on the game you're playing, you could have a farm, you could have an orchard, you could have a greenhouse. You've then got kind of religious buildings. So you could have a monastery, an abbey, a cathedral. You've got industry buildings. So you could have a factory, bank, and so on. Basically different categories and then various choices of cards that come out. And you have a combination of these cards at the start of the game, and that's what you can build. So say, for example, a orchard might be 2 yellow cubes and 1 red. And then once you've got them together kind of 3 in a row, you can take one of the little farm buildings and put that on your grid and take the cubes off. And essentially you just carry on doing that. You're building up these combination of buildings on your little board until your town's complete. And your town's complete when you say, I'm done, I can't go anymore. So you do have an element of player elimination where, I could get a bit stuck and finish up, and then you carry on and have several more turns after me. And it's just fantastic. It's thinky, it's fun, it's satisfying to see the town get built up as you go. There's a multitude of different ways to score points because all the buildings do different stuff. So like, for example, you could build a warehouse, which actually loses you points at the end of a game. But if you end up with resources that you can't place on your board, you can put them in your warehouse.
Okay. Risk reward type thing.
Yeah. Or for example, you might have cottages that aren't worth any points, but if they're fed, which means they're adjacent to a farm, then you might get 2 points for them.
Okay.
Likewise, a farm might work in tandem with a cottage, and for every cottage adjacent to a farm, you might get 4 points.
Okay.
You've got taverns, which you get kind of like 3 points for every tavern you've built on your grid. And so there's different scoring strategies you want to focus on as you go. In fact, I remember playing solo because it works brilliantly solo. It's one of my favourite solo games. You've got the abbeys, and they're really hard to build. But if you can they score 4 points each if they're in a corner. And I was able to do an abbey in all 4 corners, and it generates an absurd amount of points. It's like 4 points, and then you times them by themselves and all this kind of stuff. So you end up with like 26 points by the end of it or whatever. So yeah, it's very thinky, very fun. The theme's nice. The solo's excellent. It's a brilliant coffee morning game.
Nice.
It's very relaxed. There's no room to be salty or toxic in it.
Yeah.
And I think just going back to the solo, there's something so wholesome and nice and mindful about pouring yourself a coffee and sitting down and doing a puzzle, essentially, because that's what it is.
Okay.
It's the only real difference in the solo is you have a deck of cards with resources on them.
Okay.
So you don't have another player saying we're getting glass this round.
You turn
over a card, so the deck just determines what resources.
And that's a deck that you don't use when you play
solo.
Co-op.
Co-op, no.
Yeah.
Multiplayer.
Yeah, multiplayer.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, it's just excellent. I really could go on for ages about it. It's got some very popular expansions, which I haven't tried, but I've heard are very good. And I should mention as well, each player gets a unique kind of wonder card. So it's like a very hard building to make.
Okay.
And they all have various sort of game-breaking powers. So they tend to be really complicated and difficult to actually build. But that adds a certain degree of asymmetry to it.
Okay.
So you could have a building that doesn't do much and is very hard to build, but earns you 8 points on its own at the end of the game. Whereas I could have one. There's one in there that's very good, and it's like very difficult to build, doesn't generate points, but it lets me kind of say no to a resource once per round or something like that. So I can be like, I've got no room on my board for more glass, so I don't have to take one. And so you get these powers that come in depending on what wonder you get dealt at the start of the game and whether you build it or not.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. And I don't... Have you played it? I can't remember if you've played it.
I don't think I have. I think I get confused between Tiny Towns and another game that we've played. And it's the other game. I think I played the other game, which I don't remember the name of.
Everdell?
No, I don't think it's Everdell.
Everdell looks similar, like art-wise.
Does it? Yeah, maybe it is Everdell. I don't... Yeah, my memory's not that good there. It doesn't sound... From how you've described it, it doesn't sound like I've played it.
It's very similar in gameplay to something like Sagrada, where it's about lining stuff. It is a puzzle. It's fitting stuff in on a grid and kind of lining stuff up.
Maybe we have played it, but it was a long time ago. You've owned that for a little while, right?
Yeah, quite a long time.
I think it might be, early, like during COVID or something, or after, just shortly before COVID or something, that we might have played it. Sounds like one, again, that I need to get onto the board game table and we need to play.
Yeah, absolutely.
What coffee would you pair this with?
So if this is a coffee I do know, I would pair it with a chai latte.
Nice.
Because it's sweet,
a
little bit spicy, because you have to do some thinking.
Yeah.
And it's very bold.
Nice.
So,
nice.
I just really like it.
Yeah, chai lattes and Americanos, that's your expertise.
Yeah, there we go.
Nice.
So,
Very nice.
Those are our list of coffee morning games. Is there anything else you want to add, Andy?
Yeah, just I guess to say, if you guys have any stories that you want to tell us about coffee morning games or experiences that you've had in the morning playing games, starting off your day, please do share them. It would be nice to hear from you. I want to add a shout out to So Many Dice. I believe that's their Instagram name, at So Many Dice. Apologies if I've got that wrong, Pete. I know you probably weren't expecting that if you are listening, but we just want to shout out to you guys because you very kindly shared an Instagram story about our podcast, and we really, really appreciate that. I also wanted to reiterate to people why it is we're doing what we're doing. Josh and I are doing the podcast as just a fun way of spending time together, but it was born out of the idea of healing. And as people may or may not know, depending on where you're at in terms of listening to our podcast, Jodie and I lost our daughter about 6 months ago. We are fundraising and have been doing that for pretty much the whole 5 or 6 months. And Josh and I came up with the idea that we would do a podcast, and a percentage of any money that we're ever to make in the future, if we're fortunate enough to, will go to charity. So it's a way of us spending some time together, healing, talking about a hobby that we like, and helping raise money for, at the moment, it's the Grand Appeal and Children's Hospice Southwest. Those charities will likely move along with some other charities that we're going to support in the future, as well as those charities as well. Did you want to add anything else?
No, I think that's perfect. It's good to just kind of summarise that. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back later on this week with a new kind of bonus sub-series episode, and we hope you join us for that again. Thank you very much. I've been Josh.
I've been Andy.
Take care, everyone.
Before you leave, you must know you are beloved. Before you leave, remember I